We now continue with Smurf.
I used to be enlisted in the US Army for many years until I messed up my back and took a bullet in my leg during the Second Battle of Fallujah, which resulted in me being medically discharged and disabled for life essentially. Long before that though, I was stationed at Dugway Proving Ground in Utah, where I was a junior enlisted soldier undergoing training to become a part of CBRN Defense Unit, which essentially just means that we specialize in protecting our military forces from things like chemical and biological threats, as well as other things like nuclear or radiological threats too. A lot of the training has to do with detection, how to respond to certain situations, and decontamination and the like. Not that any of it really matters, as I never even finished my stay at the base due to events that happened there that I feel the need to share, because I need some kind of answers and to know that I am not going crazy. I figure people here can give me opinions on what I saw and perhaps reaffirm the conclusion I have already come to so many years later, however illogical it seems in my brain. I just need to know. I just need some kind of peace. Now, this base is pretty old in terms of how many years ago it was constructed, 1942 for those who care, but compared to other military installations in the United States, it's fairly recent. It's a weird one too. It's a pretty remote place, essentially in the middle of nowhere with barely anything else around. There are tons of places on base that are strictly off limits to anyone except those with the highest clearance. Security is tight, I mean really tight. It's not easy to just stumble upon something restricted, although there have been strange incidents over the years. That's not super important for my story though. Those who are keen-eyed and who have spent any time in the military would have called BS the second I mentioned I was a junior training at Dugway. I know you've probably already replied something about how most CBRN training happens at Fort Leonard Wood, and you will be right. Let's just say I was attached to a test unit working on something that needed minimal eyes on it. I won't be talking about that here, and it is not important for my story or what I saw. If what I was working on had an explanation for this, I would not be here sharing this story and asking all of you. So, the night that this happened, I was on static guard duty on a checkpoint on the base. My friend, we will call him A, was supposed to be on this shift with me. You're never supposed to take shifts alone, but he was grumbling about something earlier in the day. See, the second that we got there, we stuck to each other like flies to shit. It's hard to build trust from nothing in a remote and scary new place, but we hit it off. We shared the same room. We ate all of our meals together. He was a brother. Even if you know that eventually you will be shipped off to different places and might not see each other again for a long time, or even ever again sometimes, it's hard not to form these kinds of permanent bonds. Anyway, he was complaining that he had to transfer this package between two facilities on base, but he could not tell me what it was. Just assured me that he had been told it was urgent. He mentioned that the route would take him down the service road that my checkpoint would be looking at, so he told me he would give me a wave on the way by, and I could laugh at this dork following every order like a teacher's pet. So I'm at my checkpoint, like I was told to be. I think it was around 2 or 3 a.m. at this point. I am trying my best not to nod off while standing upright, and then I start to hear something rolling up. It's a Humvee, one from the base, but it has no lights on, like, at all. No cab light, no headlights. Why is this idiot driving completely in the dark? The only thing I could think of was him being told to drive under blackout, but it still seemed weird. And I can hear this horrid sound too as this vehicle gets closer. I can hear this really weird humming. It's like the sound you would hear when you use a taser, except it's a lot lower and is accompanied by this crackling sound. I can only assume that this is A on his drive. There are no other vehicles scheduled to be driving down this service road. It's remote and rarely used, and so I would definitely know about it. And then the Humvee just drives past me. This asshole did not even give me a wave like he promised. He had his head almost pressed up against the windshield, just really intently focused on the driving. I had no idea what his problem was. I thought maybe he needed glasses and just didn't tell anyone. And then I have no idea what happened. The vehicle, it started jerking really violently to the left and right all of a sudden, like when you see something in the road and you had to swerve. Only it was more like a pattern instead of trying to save your life. The sound that I could hear, it was much louder now, It sounded like it was being played at full volume on a speaker. I would be lying if it did not make my ears ache just a little bit. And then the vehicle starts skidding and leaving these really intense tire marks. It's threatening to flip. And when I see this, what I can only describe as some kind of flash of light, but not exactly. It wasn't strictly a blinding light or anything, it was more like an electrical spark or something. I saw that happen near the rear of the vehicle, and then this thing just flipped and tumbled a couple of times before coming to a grinding halt. I shit my pants. I could not believe what I had just seen. I was in such a state of shock I forgot to change my radio channel to contact a medic, and instead accidentally ended up contacting my CO, as I had been conversing with him earlier about tasks that needed to be completed. I was screaming and crying to him, but he did not seem frightened. All he told me was to stay put and that someone would be there soon. But I couldn't stay put. I had to check on A. I knew he must be hurt. What could have happened that caused that to happen? He's not exactly a drinker, so no way he crashed because he was drunk. The scene that I ended up coming face to face with was horrible. So horrible, I don't really want to type it all here, but I figure I need to give you an understanding of later events. I found him hanging about halfway outside the window, his body all contorted and twisted up in an impossible way. His leg, it looked like it was snapped at a right angle. There was a wound where his leg was bent, and it looked soaking wet. Weirdly enough, it wasn't red, it was closer to this grayish color that was soaked into his uniform, but I just figured it was because his blood had soaked into something else, or something had soaked out of the vehicle. It was leaking onto the ground actually, this weird grayish pool starting to form, so I figured it had to do with the vehicle and it being messed up, which must have caused the crash. He was not breathing. I could not hear anything, so I reached my hand down onto his neck to check his pulse, but when I did, I pulled my hand back reflexively because it gave me some kind of a shock. This happened another 2 or 3 times before I managed to get myself to stop acting like a pussy. He had no pulse. I tried everything to resuscitate him while waiting for help to arrive, but it did not matter. He was dead. I stood up and took a look at the vehicle. I'm not a mechanic, so I could not really figure out much of anything. Aside from the rear of the vehicle being opened up, which I assume was from the impact, and the rolling, everything looked fine from the outside, and I could not figure out why he crashed. I checked the rear. I found the package or whatever he was supposed to be delivering. It was still in the box. It had taken a knock and had some scratches. I should mention, it was in some kind of weird metal container of some sort that I had never seen before. It wasn't massive, but it looked custom made. It had some kind of code engraved in it for sorting or delivery purposes, I suppose. But other than that, it was fine. I never saw inside the package or the box. Although those weird sounds I had heard earlier, they were coming from inside this thing, I guess. Honestly, I was feeling dizzy just being near it, but I did not have any time to investigate anything further, because that's when help showed up, kinda. My CO was not there. It was these 3 soldiers I had never seen before. One claimed to be a medic, but his uniform was off. All of them were. They looked like knockoffs that were hastily stitched up in some shitty factory somewhere. The color was mostly right, but it was just little details here and there that were wrong. When they caught sight of things, they freaked out and got very defensive when I asked who they were. All I got told was that they were sent by my CO and that they outranked me. They told me to fuck off, that this site was now off limits, pending investigation, etc. I got mad. I shouldn't. I knew full well I could be punished for mouthing off like I did, but I was sad and angry and confused, and I had just watched my best friend, my only friend, die a horrible death I could do nothing to stop. We got into a fight, and let's just say that I stood no chance on my own against a group of people. They threatened me. They told me I had one more chance to leave, otherwise they'd kill me. They did not say it straight up in those exact words, but I knew what they meant, and honestly, I was too caught up in grief to really even realize what they were saying to me. It was only a long while after that I really understood what their threats meant. I got pulled off duty for the rest of that night, obviously. My CO confirmed I could just go back to my bunk, but I could not sleep after what I saw. I just lay awake the entire night staring at the ceiling until we all got the morning call. We went to our shared eating area for our morning meal. I was not really hungry, but we don't get enough food for me to have the privilege of turning it down. I was just sitting at a table somewhere tucked into a corner, somewhere I would usually sit with A. I was just pushing some really soggy peas around my plate, which had this weird chemical smell. All of the food in there was horrible. And then I saw something that I could not believe. I actually dropped my fork to the floor and just stared in disbelief. It was A. He had just walked into the room and went up to get some food. He looked okay, not injured. I couldn't really understand what was going on. He did not even take a look at me. He did not say a single word to me. He just went to some random table alone and ate there. I tried to go up to him once I had finished and before he left, but he was acting really weird. For a start, he had not eaten any food in the 10 minutes he had been there. It was all smushed and moved around to make it look like he had, but he still had a full meal. This fat bastard never turns down an excuse to eat, and the way he talked to me was just off. At first, I'm not sure why. I just tried to play it off like maybe I had made up what I'd seen, like maybe I didn't check his pulse properly. I know that sounds utterly stupid and unbelievable, but I just could not comprehend anything else at that moment. Or maybe it was just a nightmare. I don't know. So I drilled him with questions, asking what happened, how he flipped, how he recovered so quickly. But he was so short and to the point. He acted like he did not know who I was. When I first talked to him, he asked me for my name, and I told him to stop screwing with me. And he would not answer any of my questions. He told me that he was not in a crash. He actually got mad at me and just walked off. It didn't make sense. I tried asking around, but no one really knew him as well as me. We were basically each other's only friend on base. This continued for a while of me trying to talk to him, and him being cold and distant, and he did not really remember anything either. I tried asking him about something that happened to us a few weeks ago. We pranked one of the guys on base by filling his boots with mashed potatoes. But when I said it, he kind of paused for thought for a few seconds, with a blank look on his face, with his eyes looking upwards instead of looking at me. And then he started laughing really hard. And at first I thought my buddy was back. Maybe he just took a strong knock on the head. But he kept going. He was laughing like really hard. And it did not really sound like how he laughed either by the end of it. And when he realized the smile had been wiped off of my face, his laughter stopped in like an instant, and his face returned to that blank, almost emotionless look. I will admit that I acted like an idiot. I was not thinking properly and my emotions got the better of me, but I actually got into a fight with him, like a physical altercation. I can't remember exactly how it started. He said something to me that just really set me off. Just something mundane that made me really angry. I remember going to punch him, and him grabbing hold of me, and he was really cold, freezing almost, like his hands and arms and everything. But when I went for his face or chest and made contact with them, he was oddly warm. I think the weirdest part was that he knocked me out. I remember fighting for a while and just, boom, everything went black. It wasn't weird because I'm some super tough guy who can't ever be hurt, but because this guy, I mean, this is gonna sound backwards for a guy in the military, but he hated to fight. He was always hesitant to throw a punch. He was never one to get into confrontation and always tried to de-escalate if possible. But now he was trying really hard to hurt me, and he hit hard too. We are all trained the same way, with basic unarmed combat, but I don't know, his punches just seemed really powerful. We, of course, got into a lot of trouble. Punishments were given, threats of being discharged, etc. I was just in shock. First I thought he was dead, and now he was like this. I was in a bit of a pit for days. I basically talked to no one at all for weeks on end. And all this time, this guy never came back to his bunk. As far as I'm aware, he was never moved formally. I don't think they grant that shit even if you asked. But I never ever saw him come back to the room and sleep in his bunk. Not at night, not during the day. Literally never. But he would turn up for all of his duties, always waiting there bang on time or even really early a lot of the time. Not weird in itself, but this dude was not the type of guy to hurry himself any more than he really had to. But yeah, Aside from that first day I saw him return, I never saw him go in to eat meals with the rest of us. I never caught him by the showers, never anywhere near the toilets. Literally the only time I found him from then on was when he was at his post, never talking to anyone or acknowledging them, just staring off into space. I suppose it could have just been coincidence, and maybe he was showering or pissing when I was asleep or something, but added all together, it just seemed really weird. I was suspicious, and so one night, I violated curfew. Not a strict curfew. After a certain time, you were expected to stay in your barracks unless you were on duty. This goes double if you are a newbie. We wouldn't exactly get in trouble for being out, but people definitely take note of it. And so I attempted to find out where he went. I caught sight of him at some point. He was standing guard. I knew his shift mostly. His shifts were pretty stable, and so I remembered them from before. I mean, we got really close. I knew he was about to just finish up, and so I hid nearby and waited for him to move. And when he was relieved, by men I had not seen on the base before, I must add, he never headed towards the barracks. He headed further out to a more remote part of the base. Remember what I said before about the base being very high security? Yeah, this guy should not have been able to just make a beeline to an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the base. It was off limits to people like us, but for some really strange reason, there was no one stationed there at this time. There is usually always at least one person, so that newbies like us do not wander in and screw around. To my knowledge, they don't really keep much of value in there anymore, so I wondered if A got a new assignment and was now too much of a big shot for me. So I tailed him for a while longer. I watched him walk inside. 5 minutes went by, 10 minutes went by, but he never came back outside. So I snuck my way in, and he was just standing up against the far wall, doing a whole lot of nothing. He was stood up perfectly straight, but his head was like craned downwards, looking at the floor. I actually laughed out loud, which was a bit too loud and echoed. I laughed and joked that he looked like someone powered him down, but A did not respond. He just stayed in that position while I crept closer to him. I reached out to touch him. I gave him a wee slap on the face to wake him up, and when I did, I felt that little jolt of static again, which caused me to do a stupid dance out of shock and pain. Before I even got a chance to react or say anything, A had already grabbed me by the neck with both hands. He lifted me off the ground only just a few inches, which, to this day, I have no idea how. It was not very far off the ground, but still, it should not have been possible because I am not exactly a small guy. He asked me why I was there. He was very blunt and to the point, and he did not look amused. I tried to wriggle free and managed to catch him with my fist just slightly, but he was just barely in reach. I said I was big, I never said I was tall. And for a second, I saw his blank stone face change slightly to anger, and he threw me down onto the ground after punching me in the stomach. And before I scrambled to my feet, I saw something that almost made me piss my pants in fear. I only got a look for a couple of seconds because A was trying to brawl with me almost immediately and was shouting at me that I should not be in a restricted area and that he was reporting me to the CO. But for a couple of seconds, I swear, I caught sight of something at the other end of the warehouse. Now, my brain could have made this up. I could have imagined it, but I swear I saw a few other people stood up against the wall at the opposite end of the warehouse, in the exact same way as A had been stood, with their heads and necks craned downwards, slouching up against the wall. They did not react to our brawl, they were just stood there like that, like they were asleep. I was not planning on getting knocked out again, so the second I had a chance to slip free, I ran all the way back to my bunk. A never chased me outside. That rat did report me to my CO though. I did not even get to eat that morning. The second that dawn hit, I was pulled in for a meeting, a disciplinary one. I won't go into the long and boring bureaucracy of everything, or the veiled threats I had to decipher. To put it into simple terms, I was told that I was being reassigned to a different base and duty. I was dropped entirely from the test unit I was part of, and my CBRN training was discontinued entirely. I had apparently violated numerous protocols and proved that I was untrustworthy, which I'm still not fully sure what that means. I flipped out and tried to plead my case. I made the mistake of trying to explain about my friend, but my CL got real quiet and told me to shut up, and I did so without even thinking. I think I could subconsciously sense what was coming if I didn't. I was told that I would either accept my reassignment and keep quiet, or I would be dishonorably discharged for assaulting a fellow soldier, and that they would formally press charges against me. He basically insinuated that the chance of serving time in a military prison would be very high. And that was basically it. I had no choice but to accept, unless I wanted my life ruined before it even started. I stayed a grunt for most of all of my time in the military, and paid the price in the end. I never did see A again. I never did find out what really happened there. I forgot about it for a while, but I could only keep it buried in my mind for so long. Does anyone here know what the hell happened there, or what I might have witnessed? Just a final note before the video finishes, if you somehow managed to miss the disclaimers in the description and on my channel. This story is not real. This is a creepypasta for entertainment. My channel specializes in immersive fiction, which means that stories like this are written to feel realistic, so that you can more easily suspend your disbelief and enjoy being scared. Only a fool would take any story on my channel as fact. Remember, this is a creepypasta channel and not a conspiracy one. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I had an experience about 2 years back with what I can only believe to be a Wendigo in Severn, Tennessee. I was 20 years old at the time this happened. I am home on leave from the military. My buddies and I have been planning a camping trip for quite some time. I start asking around and posting online if there was anyone with land that we could camp on. After some time, my mom hears back from a friend that we could camp on his land. It's around 400 acres. Everyone is excited. The day before we go, it's rainy as shit. All we can do is hope that the rain clears up before we get there, and thankfully it does. My buddies and I load up in the car and head south. We are all excited as we are from a large city in Tennessee, and we don't really get out in nature very much. We are driving along the freeway and notice the amount of trees grow in density every mile. The four of us meet up with a landowner. I have never met him before, but he is a southern nice guy. We follow his pickup about 20 minutes outside of this one stop sign town. It's the middle of absolutely nowhere. We arrive at the gate on the side of the road. The landowner's brother is waiting. It's creepy he didn't mention it, but whatever. We got 400 acres to screw around in. They take us about 150 yards to the tree line in their pickups. Then they drop us off. They tell us to have fun and just leave us to it. They dip out of there and we set off into the woods looking for a clear spot to set up base. We find the perfect spot and get to work, but my dumbass only brought a tarp and a blanket. 4 hours later and my lean-to is complete. My face went. It only took my friends 10 minutes to set up their tents and hammocks. I decided to take one buddy to go hunting. He'd never been before. Me and, we'll call him R, set out with a rifle to try and find something to kill. It's a .223. We brought 2 rifles along with us but left one back at base camp. We are trudging along through the mud and thick brush. There is no noise, it's just completely quiet all around. It's kinda weird actually. I hear movement and see leaves rustle, but there is no animal to be seen. Must have been a squirrel, I say. We continue. Nothing eventful happens. We walk back to base. There is no leaves or foliage, just bare trees tightly packed in a dense cluster. We have trouble finding the base. We hear talking and so we decide to follow the sound. There is some distant muttering. It sounds like a female? That's not right. We go in the opposite direction and end up finding the camp eventually. The other bros have a fire going good. They are cooking up some bacon. It's weird because we did not smell anything until we were right up on the fire. We all hang out until nighttime. I thought we brought some more food than bacon and a few eggs. Oh well. Other bros are starting to get really hungry. It's already dark outside. They decide to hike out to the car and go and get some food. I decide I will stay and keep the fire going. I have them take my phone to charge it. I guess the cold weather kind of killed the battery. They leave, making all of the noise in the world. There goes my chance to hunt at night. I am just sitting by the fire, feeding it what little dry wood we found. The temperature is dropping pretty rapidly. It's already 30 degrees Fahrenheit and dropping. It's not weird since it's winter. I noticed the eerie silence. My ears are actually ringing from the silence. There is no wind or branches falling, just nothing. I am feeling spooked, but I managed to maintain my composure. I suddenly start to hear this strange noise. It's like a whispered death rattle, like someone with asthma is being waterboarded after a marathon. I hear distant branches start to break. I think maybe my bros are back with dinner, but it's coming from the wrong direction. I grab my 7.62 by 39 and flashlight. I rack the charging handle quietly. My frozen hand slips off the handle and makes the loudest noise possible. I look around with my flashlight. Horror movie moment, my battery dies. Here we go. I sit down by the fire to try and get warm. My ears are wide open. There is no more movement, but I can hear slight whispers all around. The noises die down. It must be the PTSD. I am sitting by the fire for another 5 minutes. I hear a noise in front of me. I ready my rifle and look up from the fire. What in God's name? It's the legs of a deer. It's a decaying torso of a deer and human mix. There are these skeletal arms that dangle down to its knees. The head. That head. It's a coyote head with antlers. The hair on its body is half fallen off and covered in blood. 5 seconds of looking at it and my training kicks in. I put 2 shots in the chest. It still stands there, but breathing heavily now. I decide to mag dump. It lets out this hideous scream. It was a mix of a coyote, deer, and human screaming. I reload my rifle. I mag dump again. It eventually retreats into the woods. This noise starts to erupt all around me. The wind starts to flow very heavily. The trees are making these croaking sounds under the immense streams of wind. I can hear the distant screams of that thing, the coyote, deer, and human hybrid screams. Then all of a sudden there is just nothing. The world around me continues as normal. My buddies return maybe 10 minutes later. I have no way to tell time, as my phone is with them. I munch on delicious Taco Bell. They ask me if anything happened, and I'm just like, nah, pretty quiet night. They ask me what's with the shell casings, and I just tell them I got bored. I didn't really want to tell them what actually happened. I stay up all night stoking the fire and keeping watch. We get out of there upon first light of sun. Screw staying any longer. I have not been back on that property since, but I would be willing to go again if I can get in contact with the landowner. He has not been heard from in a year. Any idea on what the hell I saw and shot? Are Wendigos even in Tennessee? Alright, I'll tell my story and then I'll give you my best rational explanation for it afterwards. Here's what happened to me. I was around 19 years old when this happened. I'm living with family. We're moving from one apartment to another at this time. I wind up doing all the heavy lifting and coordinating the move, packing and moving things during the day, and then sleeping alone in the old place each night. The last 4 days, as I am drifting off to sleep, I hear a voice calling out, "Help me, I've fallen, please, I'm so cold, please, help." It jolts me right out of my sleep state. It sets my teeth on edge and my hair on end. Every time I start to drift off, I hear it, so I reach for that nighttime, coughing, aching, sneezing medicine, Old Crow bourbon whiskey, and also Jim Beam. There was another reason I bunked at the old place while we were moving. I had a lot more liquor on deck than I legally should have, and wanted to keep a close eye on it. I chug whiskey each night until I could not hear shit, and that whispering could not wake me up anymore. I make it through the move. On the last day, a neighbor is chatting. She says it must be a relief moving after the old lady next door had died. I press her for details, as it sinks in that I may have been drinking myself senseless to the point of ignoring a dying woman's call for help. My neighbor says they found her corpse 3 weeks before. She was already dead, well before I ever heard her voice. So, my best logical explanation is this. I had heard her call for help, subliminally, while she was dying, but it did not register because I was too distracted. It was only when I was at the old apartment, alone, in solitude, with no cable, and all my vidya packed up, that I started to remember it as I fell asleep. I guess my mind recreated it in the absence of stimuli, and then it hit me when I had no distractions to focus on. That's my best rational guess, but I don't know. So I have to pass a piss test for work. I am not really in the mood to quit weed. I buy this fake piss called monkey Bizzness. It smells alright, I decide to go for it. I smoke a dab, put on a flashy suit with shades and a captain's hat, and head to the lab. I get there. I immediately realize I smell like straight weed. I am horrifyingly stoned. The hottest woman I've ever seen in my life appears. She is the attendant. She knows I'm high. Thank goodness for these shades. She sits me down and says some things, then hands me a cup. I go to the bathroom to do the deed. I unzip my pants. I pee for real first into the toilet. I grab the monkey tube. It is attached to my leg with a warm fake bladder on my thigh. I pop the cork. The monkey urine starts spraying everywhere. I can't control the flow. I try blocking it with my hand. There is piss blasting at the speed of light, getting on the walls, all over my nice clothes, the toilet, everywhere but the cup. The pee actually hits my shades. Thank God for these things. I manage to dribble some primate pee into the cup. This woman starts knocking at the door. Pretty sure she wants to bang me. I tell her just a moment. I start wiping up the wee-wee. I am so ripped from the marijuana, doing a terrible job, getting it all over my sleeves and hands. I present myself as suavely as possible. She leads me to the office again. She is rushing to get me out of the room, trying not to gag from the primal odor. I sign some papers, urine stains dotting my signatures. I pass the test. I land the job. Thanks, monkey Bizzness.